Hello and welcome. This is episode 10 of my to-do list, and last week was the first week that I didn't manage to actually film a video. It was raining, it was miserable. It didn't stop me from doing some stuff, from making some discoveries, which I'll let you in the first part of this video, before we get to, I would say, some preparing the car for some electrical work. I want to get the window regulators to work again. I want to do some other electrical testing. And in order to do so, we'll have to take apart a bunch of the panels, some of the dashboard, just to expose the wiring to understand how it's actually all working together. On top of that, I want to do some really basic electrical testing, things I've taught myself using the multimeter. Before we get to all the electrical stuff, let me show you one or two updates, positive and negative. So let's go. Number one is what I did the previous week, which was repainting the tow bar. It's nice and black. This is what satisfies me the most, is this view here, or in general when I'm standing, I guess from like this perspective, is that it now looks clean. There's no rust. A bit of a sad thing to have happened is that my pull for the bonnet broke, so I'm waiting for a new part, a replacement there. I've currently just used some, string essentially, so I can open the bonnet. It's really annoying and it looks hideous, but it does the trick. I've also taken the door card out here, which is currently off, and it's in the back of my boot right there. While doing so, I kind of managed to damage the little knob, which is a bit stupid because I thought I had to take it off, but because it's not the one that gets thicker at the top, I actually can take the door card off without even having to unscrew this. So I did this for no good reason. The main reason I started pulling apart stuff is because I noticed that my battery was losing charge. So there must be some sort of drain, and in order to identify if that's actually the case and where it's coming from, I performed a parasitic drain test. There's multiple ways to do this. Two ways I think are the dominant ways of doing this if you have a multimeter, and I will show you both of these tests and how they're performed. The first test I'd like to talk about is the drop voltage test, because for this test we don't actually have to detach the battery and we can leave the system as it is. I should have started with this test, which I didn't, and it was only after I asked some people on Reddit, did some more research, that I came across this test. And if I had started with this test, I maybe wouldn't have taken apart as many pieces as I did. To perform a drop voltage test, you will set your multimeter to DC volts and probably one of the finer settings, so you want to read millivolts. So what you do is you check how much voltage is lost in a circuit due to resistance in the wires. So by measuring the voltage drop, you can see if there's more resistance than there should be, which helps identify where the issue is. With the car turned off, I should be expecting 0 because there's no current going, or should be no current going through these fuses. If there is something draining my battery, I would expect that at one of these fuses, one of these circuits is drawing. So I would expect there to be some sort of voltage to be measured. So I'm going to perform a voltage drop test on fuse 9, which controls the comfort circuitry system. Currently the doors are open and I'm expecting to find some measurement here that indicates that this system is indeed active. So if I do this across the fuse, I get a reading of... Okay, so this is my reading that I'm getting. Now let's just shut the door. I'll shut it with my foot. And here we go. So now we should see this drop to 0. And there we go. When you're doing these tests, make sure that your car is in sleep mode and that in fact everything, all the systems that should be shut off are shut off. Some cars take about 20 minutes to up to an hour to enter this sleep mode. So what I'll do now is I'll go through all of the fuses and see if I come up with some measurement. So with this measurement of now 0.3 millivolts and the resistance of the fuse that you can look up online, we can calculate the amount of current we are drawing. And we know that it's coming from fuse C. So something in here is drawing current. So let's do the calculation. So this has went up as high as 0.4 millivolts, which should translate to roughly 40 milliamps. All right, welcome to this side of the bonnet. And the test that we're going to perform now is essentially we're setting our multimeter in line. For that, we will need to detach the negative terminal of the battery first. With the negative terminal detached, we now want to switch our multimeter to the 10 amp. It says an extra fuse in here in case I go over a certain amount of amps, which this one wouldn't take. This can only go up to 200 milliamps. So I would very easily blow a fuse if I, for example, opened the door while I was doing this test. Anyway, I'll set this to the 10 amp level. I'll use the black probe and touch the cable first, and then I will go to the negative terminal of the battery until I get a connection. All right, and we can see a measurement, and it starts at 0.26, which is 260 milliamps, which is way too high, and which is why I started panicking and taking things apart. What I didn't do is I didn't wait for about 40 seconds. So you gotta imagine that when you're completing the circuit, you are activating the battery for the first time. And as we can see now, I've heard a clicking coming from the comfort relay, which is responsible for the windows. That has now deactivated after about 30 seconds. And now I'm getting a draw of, I can't read, is that? Yeah, so that's 80 milliamps, 80 or 90 milliamps, which is still on the higher side, but it matches up with my drop voltage test, because you'd expect to be a resting current of about 30 to maybe 50 milliamps for stuff like the clock. 80 to 90 is a bit higher, but if we look at the measurement I got from fuse C, which was 0.4 millivolts, translating to roughly 40 milliamps, that is exactly what is drawing a bit too much power. So the investigation should now really be into fuse C and all the things that are attached to that circuit. Let's go on a little side trip here, because this is what I did effectively, and which I didn't need to do, but I think is very interesting, is that clicking that I heard, which I was worried about and I didn't quite know what it was, and now I know it's the comfort relay. It's good to know where it sits, what it does, and so I will show you. And for that we will need to open up, which is 5 screws. Actually, it could be 6. Now you can lift this up and carefully bring it forward. And in here, in the back of here, is where we can find the clicking relay. So that whitish box there, that is the comfort relay, and you will be able to wiggle it out. Just be careful not to break any other components or the contacts itself. So let's get it out of there. This is always a bit of a pain, but there we go. This is another comfort relay, and I got this part from a friend just to see if my comfort relay was faulty. Both of these will do the exact same thing, but interesting for you now is to see what happens when the comfort relay isn't plugged in at all, because this means that now none of the windows would be engaging at all. So with the comfort relay removed, we're getting about 120 milliamps. So let's wait and see if that changes over time. There we go, we're at the 80 milliamps. After all that panic with the battery and the testing, I started taking things apart. I thought it could be some actuator of the door locking mechanism system. I had the pump under here out again, and I was deconnecting and measuring again. It was a huge deal for not much result, but I thought this is a good moment in time to actually take off all of the door cards, because I want all of my windows to work. And I've made some very interesting findings. Simply taking apart the other door showed that I don't have a window regulator in there at all. So the window regulator that I have right here, this window regulator has actually been taken out of that door. So I went and tested this, but this one is actually not faulty. So there must be some sort of wiring issue which is preventing this one from working using the switch. I don't know what's going on really on this side. I have actually made some finding, which leads me to go forward to the switch control. So let's go there first. Using the flathead, I can just pull this out. With one hand, it's very difficult, but there we go. We can just pull this out entirely. In here, we will find one screw, which is right there, a bit dark. And there we go. Unscrewed it. And now this whole thing can pop up, but before it pops up, we will need to take off this part here. You might need a trim removal tool because I've recently done this and I actually prepared it so I can take it off. Kind of got a grip on it. There we go. Put that aside. And now all of this should come up. My buttons were initially stuck in there a bit, so I had to use my second hand. So here we go. Sadly, I've got a bunch of little cracks on the surface, which are not that easy to fix, and a new part is like 250 bucks, so I'll be okay with this for now. I've reattached the battery to show you what's going on. So, front right works. Front left works as well. Back right, I can get down, but I can't get up. Nothing happens. Now, let's take it apart a bit further. You can remove the switches by kind of wiggling them off. So here you've got just the switch. But I need to go even further. I want to get to the point where the cable underneath goes into here. So with my flathead, I will have to go in here and kind of clip, and then I can push it through. So I'll get to that now because I can't film and do it. I have detached all of the switches and pushed them through without breaking any of the clips. And now you can see I've got all the individual switches and the cable in there. We can open these up further as well. Here's an example of how one of them looks like. And the way they clip is that they have these, look, clips together like that. And not only does that clip in and that clip in, they also clip in on the side. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 clips. And 4 of them need to kind of be unclipped for one of these to open up. You've got the pins, and these pins would go into there like that. Right? So that's what we got. Now the wiring is where it gets interesting. So there's 4 wires, and so from what I'm understanding is that the brown wire is the ground wire, the green wire is for power, and the blue wires are responsible for the up movement. So the way a window regulator works is that down is just power, and then for up it reverses the polarity to send the signal to go up. So now the interesting thing is, and I told you I can't get it to go up, but if I connect these 2 blue wires, do you hear that? That's my window in the back going up. So if these 2 blue wires touch each other, then the circuit is complete and it goes up. So something in the wiring is wrong, and my knowledge just isn't good enough to fix this. I know that it has to be there might be some break in the circuit. I don't know where it is. I don't know what it's doing, but that's why I want a professional to look at this. And in order to make the job for the professional as easy as possible, I'm taking everything apart as much as I can. Hopefully with the rear left window regulator, it's as easy as plugging it in again. I've detached the battery again. I've used some electrical tape just to make sure that once I turn everything on again, the wires aren't touching each other when they're live. The last thing in today's video is I want to take apart this door. So to get the door off, not much is needed. There's actually, I think these 3 tools will get me all the way. The first thing you do is you unscrew this thing here. There we go. The second thing that I like to do, just because I tend to forget if I don't do it now, is to take the light out. For that, you can simply, with your hand, kind of unclip it. If you want to, you can use the trim removal part and kind of get under it a bit easier. Take a quick look at that. So I unclipped this from under there, and now you can pull it out a bit, and then we're just gonna attach it here at the contacts, which is just pulling both the contacts off. So if we turn this sideways, we can see that there is 2 contacts left, right. So let's pull that off first. In the next step, we're going to have to remove this black trim. And for that, I will use my trim removal. And it can be a bit tricky, but just make sure you're not damaging anything. Slowly, and here we go. And this, obviously, same kind of switch that we have at the front. So we know that it should just unclip from the back here. We can hold the back terminal, wiggle, and there we go. Now, also in here, we have this bit of foam, and behind here we have a 10 millimeter, at least I'm pretty sure it's 10 millimeter, and we can simply undo that. Okay, there we go. So now we've got to unhook the handle. For that, we're going to take possibly just a screwdriver. We can get in here. You kind of just want to lift under it. You lift it up and get it out. It's very much, you can very much see the hook kind of jumping out, and then this will be loose, doing nothing. Now, all you do is you can slide this forward a little bit and then out. So here we go. Hold this. Be careful not to pull this too much because you're going to pull it off of the door, and we don't want to do any of that. Okay, so now we get to the most tricky part where most damage can be done, because the door is now basically just held in place by clips. And clips can break off if you don't know what you're doing. So for this, it actually helps to look at the other door card. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this one's broken off, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of 9 or 10. You get the concept. It's stuck in there like this. So you have to carefully pull it up and then away. I'm kind of just putting some pressure from the bottom and it's coming off. Sometimes it's actually the windowsill in here that gets a bit stuck. So I'm just using the trim tool to kind of loosen it up a bit. Okay, let's hope that that didn't break any clips. We've got the speaker here. That is just one single clip. And there we go. That's unclipped. Then we can take this. And there we go. That's the door card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks like they're all still in place. Right, now the only thing we're left with that's separating us from the electric components or the window regulator is the moisture barrier. And this moisture barrier is unfortunately glued on. So the only thing I can do is I can rip it off. Yep. Right, so I'll put this aside. Don't know if I'll actually use it, but might as well keep it. Sound of the window regulator. Right, and this is actually quite interesting to me because what I am lacking for my side is, first of all, just the 3 bolts, which the regulator is fixed in with. That's 3 there. And then up here is the connector. And I don't have the connector either. I reckon this is all I'm going to do in terms of taking the car apart for the auto electrician this week. Hopefully I can get an appointment towards the end of next week, and maybe they let me even film some of the process, because it would be really interesting to see what's actually wrong, how to potentially replace the cable if necessary, what the process looks like. And yeah, I would love to film that. I would love to show you so we can all get a better understanding of the whole electrical system that is operating this car. But that's where I'm going to call it for this week. I think we've covered a wide array of stuff on this episode. So once again, thanks for watching and see you next time.